The office was quiet, except for the buzz of the overhead lights as I walked into the room. There I stood, a resolute woman with a deep-seated drive, staring down the smirking CEO who had just diminished my value. "You're just staff," he'd said to me. "You'll never get to my position," he scoffed, his tone laced with disdain. I looked him in the eye with a calm, steady smile and stated, "We'll find out." In that brief instant, the atmosphere around us changed. I could feel the sting of his arrogance and the boldness of my own aspirations thrumming within me. This wasn't just about my ego, it was about taking charge of my future. Each person in the room felt the strain as his words bounced off the cold walls. My pulse quickened, not out of fear, but with excitement. I remembered all the nights I'd stayed up late, the persistent resolve to show that I was not just another nameless worker in this company. My thoughts raced back to the constant hard work of past years, laboring diligently behind the scenes, making plans and forming relationships, all while keeping my goals concealed beneath an appearance of quiet certainty. I had been poring over all the financial documents for ages, looking at every meeting's notes and every private chat I could find. While he was showing off, I was secretly building a solid group of supportive people, including both coworkers and investors who all believed in something bigger than his childish pride. I poured my heart into my goals, just like I did for my team, frequently providing a sympathetic ear and encouragement when things felt tough. This combination of toughness and sincere caring is what made me different. I could hear his laughter as he brushed off my hopes, but his mocking was a dare, a challenge to me. I could see the doubt in his eyes, the confidence that came from his comfortable position. Yet underneath that outward appearance, he also had his own fears, kept hidden by years of ego boosting. As his scoffing voice filled the room, I secretly promised myself that I'd use his mockery to my advantage. Without a second thought, I declared I was leaving the boardroom, which caused some murmuring among the staff. My walk was determined, and my thoughts were already moving through the actions I had planned carefully. I walked to the office where the agreements happened in silence, where the fate of companies was decided in secret talks. The energy of the whole operation was palpable, with every division fueling this huge entity. At that instant, I felt like more than just a worker. I was like a natural phenomenon, a symbol of change about to be set loose. His scornful comments still echoed in my thoughts, pushing me to show him he was mistaken. My strategy was now in motion, and it would soon lead me to the point where my goals were met. I'd been planning my rise to the top, and had also taken the significant step of closing a deal that same night. The secretive discussions had been lengthy and challenging, packed with potential problems, but my goal was crystal clear. I pictured a business altered by compassion and inner fortitude, where the human aspect was just as important as financial returns. It was a complete shift in company leadership, moving away from selfish ambition to a good balance of power and generosity. Every action I took showed the perseverance of a woman who'd been underestimated for way too long. I had been forming a group of supporters who believed in both innovation and fairness through every quiet conversation and hidden meeting. Tonight, reflecting on my own path, I was filled with a sense of pride and determination. My mission wasn't solely about acquiring personal influence. My goal was to reshape what leadership meant. Soon, the entire organization, from the executive suite to the common areas, would experience the effects of this transformation. I could already picture a future where people followed you because they respected you, not because they feared you, but because you showed them sincere compassion and a deep, enduring dedication to doing things right. Walking back to my small office, I encountered coworkers who shared understanding looks, silently encouraging my determination. There was excitement in their eyes, an unspoken agreement of faithfulness and shared aspirations. In that moment of heightened emotion, I was prepared to move forward, not just out of a desire for retribution, but to establish a lasting impact that combined both power and compassion. Even though the night had been exhausting, the start of the day signaled a new beginning, one where even the harshest critiques couldn't extinguish the power of authentic leadership. The head of the company might not have valued me much, but soon, he'd realize I was the creator of my own fate, and that fate was completely assured. I stepped forward confidently, and my future shone brightly. After the intensity of the meeting finally subsided, I found myself retreating inside my head, the place where I put together all my ideas and options. The energy from the argument still had me wired, so I went to a quiet spot in the office, a place where I often had late-night talks and secret deals. What drove me wasn't just wanting revenge. It was a deep-seated need to transform our company's environment, to show that you could be a strong leader and still care about people. I took my phone out, and its screen lit up with messages of encouragement from those I could count on. "We're ready," one text said, and another just stated, "Let's make a difference." Reading those words made me grin because I knew that each short text represented the wishes of so many employees who wanted a more equitable and just work environment. At that point, I understood my fight wasn't just about me. It was a symbol for everyone who had felt insignificant against the big corporations. I thought about the many hours spent reviewing financial documents, those endless spreadsheets that hid stories of wastefulness and greed. I remembered the times when sleep was a rare thing, replaced by an unwavering will and a feeling that one individual could actually make a difference. Up until now, it's been quite a struggle, but every time I stumbled, it just made me more determined. I recalled what my mentor had told me. Genuine strength comes from facing hardship, seasoned with kindness. Those words really resonated with me as I geared up for the next stage. I set up a meeting with a group of investors, a collection of experienced financial people who were fed up with the awful leadership from before. In a private dining room, away from the main area, I faced them, laying out my whole plan. I told them with a blend of urgency and optimism how this company could not only be successful, but also become a catalyst for good. Think about a future where success isn't just about money, but about the happiness of every single worker. I stated this, my voice filled with both resolve and honesty. Their faces, which were doubtful at first, gradually relaxed as I described the ways we could completely transform the company. I talked about new management methods, being honest with our finances, and most importantly, putting the focus back on people. We aren't here to crush anyone's aspirations, I stressed. Instead, we will create a workplace where everyone can reach their greatest possibilities. The air in the room seemed to hum with potential, as if all the pent-up frustration of past years was starting to dissipate. As the evening progressed, our discussions drifted away from spreadsheets and regulations, becoming more intimate. An investor, a woman with experience written on her face and gentle eyes, leaned in and shared, "I see not just drive in you, but also the soul of a genuine leader." It's not often you encounter someone who possesses both determination and empathy. Her words solidified my conviction that I was on the correct trajectory. In that private moment, I promised myself to respect their faith in me by not just taking charge, but also using that authority to uplift everyone else. The talks continued late into the night, with every minute detail analyzed and every risk evaluated with precision. Despite the stress of making important choices, I stayed firm, my attention unwavering. The whole experience was both thrilling and nerve-wracking, a reminder that making big changes often comes at the cost of lost sleep and risky decisions. But as the final papers were signed, a sense of silent victory washed over the room. I had actually pulled it off. I had secured a deal that would allow me not just to join the leadership team, but also to take over the very company that had previously underestimated me. As I left the dining area, I stopped for a moment in the deserted hallway, where the chilly air hinted at upcoming transformations. In that isolated instant, I found myself deeply connected to every worker who had ever lacked confidence, every person whose voice had been crushed by the pressure of the company's rule. I felt this win belonged just as much to them as it did to me. It was a shared accomplishment earned through persistence and the belief we all held. Looking into the shiny windows of the office, I didn't see one single person, but a combination of goals and hopes. Every reflection represented a narrative, a fight, a quiet call for appreciation and consideration. And within that collection of visions, I committed to being both a defender and protector. My own drive was balanced with a deep sense of compassion, a pledge to guide with feeling and justice. I had experienced both the sting of rejection and the thrill of winning, and I was now resolved to ensure that nobody else went through the same things. As the morning light started to shine through the glass walls of the building, I understood that a fresh start was happening. The atmosphere at the company's main office became thick with excitement as rumors of modifications began to spread through every space. During the days after the secret deal, I felt a difference in the environment, a quiet acceptance that the former arrangement was collapsing. The higher-ups exchanged awkward looks, and even the normally unyielding managers seemed uneasy. I felt like every interaction was laced with a sense of unease, as though the structure itself was nervously awaiting the impending crisis. I had devoted the time in between to preparing carefully for the repercussions that were sure to come. Those late nights bled into early mornings as I reviewed every approach, every possible backup plan. One night, unable to sleep, I found myself alone within the empty corridors, and the sound of my steps was the only thing breaking the quiet, keeping time like a steady heartbeat. I remembered a talk with Maria, a colleague I trusted, who once shared with me, "You're carrying both your own aspirations and the expectations of all of us. Promise me," she said, "that you won't let the negativity win." Those words really stuck with me, a quiet prompt to remember that compassion would guide me, even in this cutthroat corporate landscape. As I made my way through the confusing maze of offices, I ran into former friends and people who doubted me. In a quick, intense exchange with Samuel, a higher-up whose support was uncertain, I heard him whisper, "This is a risky move, but I believe in your ability to guide us." His hesitant positivity sparked something within me, a reminder that even when things seemed their darkest in the world of office politics, there was still a belief in a better future. I just gave a soft nod in response, silently agreeing with what he said. At that brief moment, I didn't see an opponent but someone who could work with me to achieve fairness and positive change. Those shadowy hallways of authority, adorned with portraits of former heads of state, felt as though they were scrutinizing my actions with distrust. I remembered when I was treated as if I didn't matter, and the CEO's mocking laughter still rang in my ears like a harsh tune. Now, each stride I made was a quiet challenge to that unpleasant recollection. I walked by the old boardroom's door, now completely silent, and a wave of sadness washed over me, recalling the times that were lost to arrogance and short-sightedness. But beneath that sadness, I felt a determined strength to never again allow myself to be disregarded. During a private chat with a reliable executive named Darren, I heard that certain groups within the company were plotting to weaken the old leadership's grasp. "They are afraid of shifts," Darren whispered, his voice barely audible, "and they're poised to wreck any action that disrupts things." Those words sent a shiver through me, but I understood that fear was just the natural response to change. "We'll prevail over their opposition by using honesty and openness," I told him firmly, my voice conveying conviction and understanding. Every act of betrayal would only strengthen our determination to develop a more just and truthful company. The strain peaked during a meeting that the temporary board unexpectedly called. The room held a mix of nervous faces and confrontational gazes when I took my place at the head of the table. Across the table, the ex-CEO glared at me. His usual self-assuredness was now clouded by hesitation. "You actually believe you can just barge in and take over?" he asked, his voice faltering, almost suffocating due to his own inflated ego. I held his stare, answering, "I believe I'm completely justified in altering the path this company is on." The conversation was tense, full of bottled-up anger that stretched back for ages, combined with a deep desire for fairness. At that instant, whispers went around the board. One by one, they started sharing their opinions, their words a mix of worry and optimism. "Maybe it's time for a change," one board member proposed, and another agreed, saying, "Leadership needs to grow to mirror what the workers value." The discussion grew, a dramatic blend of conflict and constructive discussion, highlighting the enormous scope of what was happening. Amidst the heated arguments, I made a concerted effort to show kindness to those who questioned what I was trying to do. I approached Carla, an employee of many years who had once felt let down by the company's strict structure. "Carla, your knowledge and perspective are priceless," I said gently, letting her know her work would be appreciated in this new period. Her eyes lit up with a fresh sense of hope, a quiet sign that change wasn't just possible but was actually coming. That act of encouragement spread throughout the room, acting as a reminder that my role was to empower everyone. The gathering finished without a concrete decision, just a pledge for more discussion and a shared recognition that things would shift. After the board members dispersed, I remained at the table, considering how complicated people's aspirations can be, as well as how easily the status quo can be disrupted. The conflict had represented the broader conflict, a clash between outdated practices and the aspiration for a fairer future. I understood that the upcoming journey would be difficult, but I also knew that each hurdle provided a chance to strengthen the principles of fairness and compassion that I believed in. Once I walked outside into the chilly evening air, I felt the significance of that day's proceedings weighing me down. The future was uncertain, yet my core held a strong resolve to lead the company toward a better future. In that moment of dusk, as the city lights turned on, I quietly made a personal promise. I would live up to the faith that had been placed in me, and I would do it with both resilience and empathy. I felt my pulse quicken, not out of nerves, but because of a strong sense of purpose, a mix of getting even and having to take charge that made me feel the weight of each move. Each step I took sounded like a drumbeat announcing a new era, reverberating through the quiet hallways that now belonged to me. The reception area, which used to represent the previous management, was filled with hushed talk of expectation as the employees recognized the shift in leadership. I stopped for a second at the doorway, observing the setting, my coworkers whose gazes were filled with optimism, murmurs of enthusiasm drifting through the air like the quiet promises of a better tomorrow. I understood that this moment meant much more than just a personal win. It was a fresh start for every single person who'd been hurt by the previous system. As I made my way toward the old CEO's office, I remembered that crucial confrontation, mixing with what was happening at that exact moment. The glossy door, bearing his name, now was a silent reminder of the past. I only paused for a split second before opening it, understanding that all my future choices would be carefully observed, praised, or criticized. The room was filled with the soft light of the morning, and the furniture showed a sense of history and tradition. Yet, those historical objects were about to become part of a new phase of the company's narrative. Inside, I discovered the ex-CEO sitting behind a substantial mahogany desk, looking up at me with a stunned expression. The world seemed to freeze for a second, like time itself had decided to take a break, recognizing the enormousness of the change. His lips parted, silently pleading, but no sound came out. I was the one to break the silence, speaking in a voice that was both even-tempered and decisive. "Hello, I'm here to guide this business into a fresh chapter." My words hung in the room, filled with both the weight of command and a pledge of being just. You could practically cut the tension with a knife in that room. I felt the pressure of his past cockiness, the leftover feeling from the way he'd looked down on me, the way his sneers had bothered me for so long. However, instead of taking the chance to get back at him, I decided on a course of action that was carefully thought out. I understand the responsibility I now carry. I kept speaking honestly, and I plan to respect it by developing it with new ideas, understanding, and a solid promise to every single person working with us. The announcement wasn't simply a statement of control. It was an offer to work together with me to build a future. A tiny bit of regret flashed in his gaze, a brief moment where I caught a glimpse of the real person underneath the image of authority, a person who, just like the rest of us, had once been formed by hopes and insecurities. "I never thought this would happen," he started to say, but his voice faded out, overcome by the understanding that his world was falling apart. I nodded slightly, recognizing the intricate nature of our shared past. "It's not about forgetting what happened, but using those lessons to progress together," I murmured, offering him a bit of respect despite his loss of influence. As we talked, the space morphed into a space of authentic exchange. I asked him to give me his perspective, his disappointments, and his visions for the company's future. In that charged instance, I showed that being a leader didn't automatically equal being mean or dictatorial. Rather, it was an ongoing conversation, a collaboration between former enemies linked by the wish to establish something lasting and fair. Beyond the office doors, the sound of the office was intensifying. Staff members were grouped together, their expressions showing a mix of curiosity and a feeling of freedom. It felt like the company's very essence had sped up, aligning with the new feeling of optimism that I was starting. I returned to the center of the room, not with an air of superiority, but with the calm confidence of someone who had worked diligently for every bit of advancement. During the following days, as I got comfortable in my new position, I implemented extensive changes that reflected the promises I'd given that morning. I spoke directly with the department leaders, listened to their worries carefully, and began changes to promote openness and inclusion. I quickly heard talk of a new corporate environment, one that had been rebuilt, and this news was quickly becoming popular, with a focus on kindness being as critical as skill, and everyone getting a chance to speak. Kindness can change everything. During the next few weeks, the company hallways began to transform, showcasing a mixture of hope, strength, and a renewed sense of direction. I found myself moving through areas where quiet used to be the norm, but now there was a buzz of innovative collaboration. Every person I saw seemed calm, but determined, as though everyone had the same goal in mind, and that goal was change. This was a true illustration of transformation, and it reminded me that real leadership isn't about what your job title is, but how you impact other people. I made it a priority to go to every department, from the active marketing teams to the very organized finance offices, and I listened to the concerns and dreams of those who hadn't previously felt heard. During an especially important meeting, I sat with a group of younger analysts who had felt unimportant in past leadership systems. Remember what you think is important. I told them, speaking with sincerity, and that together we would discover a way where everyone's perspective would be valued. They looked at me with gratefulness, and in that instant, I felt years of being burdened by what was happening just disappear. It wasn't simply about putting policies in place or altering strategies. I really wanted to cultivate a work environment where everyone felt included and treated each other with respect. I implemented programs that encouraged different teams to work together. This way, we wouldn't repeat the same errors, and instead, we'd use them to learn and grow into something better. Everything we did, from new projects to updated rules, was filled with a sense of empathy, a promise that nobody would be ignored or made to feel unimportant. The shift wasn't always easy, though. There were definitely times when people pushed back, times when the old habits of separation and apathy tried to resurface. However, every hurdle was addressed with careful thought and a firm dedication to our collective goal. I remember one especially difficult day when a big argument broke out during a meeting about our plans. An executive, still stuck in the old ways of doing things, strongly opposed a plan to let more people make decisions. "This is going to create a mess and waste time," he complained. I listened carefully, recognizing his worries, and then replied, "True productivity comes from letting everyone contribute their best." The room went quiet as everyone thought about what I'd said, and gradually the argument turned into a more helpful discussion. It was a crucial moment, a reminder of the tricky balance between holding onto the past and embracing new ideas. As the growing season progressed, the formerly divided company started to mend. The previous patterns of leaving people out and strict management gave way to a vibrant atmosphere where innovative ideas and caring thrived together. I realized that being a kind leader didn't just improve the company, it also changed me personally. Each day, as I dealt with new difficulties and enjoyed small successes, I was constantly reminded of how strong empathy is and how crucial it is to stick to your principles. When I had a few moments to think, I often went back in my mind to the memory of that critical meeting in the boardroom, the thing that sparked this whole process, and I felt incredibly grateful for the chance to turn hardships into something positive. The alterations spread beyond the workplace, encouraging other companies and even local areas to take a fresh look at how they lead. I got asked to talk at industry events. There, I shared not only the specific steps we took to turn the company around, but also the deeply personal things I learned about being resilient, staying humble, and how kindness can really change things. In all my talks, I stressed that genuine achievement is about the positive effect we have on other people, and that a lasting impact is created through empathy, which is far more meaningful than profit statements or financial results. Even when the demands of leading increased, I never lost sight of the individual stories that made up the core of our business. I established a monthly tradition of these get-togethers, casual yet sincere, where anyone on staff could come and hang out, tell their experiences, and provide each other with some assistance. These times when we connected authentically reignited the sense of togetherness, really solidifying the notion that we weren't just colleagues, but a group of people linked in our quest for a brighter future. As I gazed out the window of my office at the busy city in the quiet of late afternoon, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. My path had been tough, including times of questioning and disagreement, although it was also deeply rewarding. I'd not only taken back control of my own life, but I'd also helped many other people break free from the constraints of their past. It was a tradition of fresh starts, a light of optimism that burned as brightly as the daylight. I completely believed that the strong base we constructed would survive whatever came our way and conquer difficulty.